My name is Tamathy, and I grew up in a small town in Missouri, and I'm the oldest of 21 kids. There were 12 girls, 9 boys, no twins, same parents. And it was really hot in Missouri all the time, except for in winter when it was really, really cold. And it was really boring because we were in such a small town and there was no internet, of course. Everything was sad then before internet, but it was also hot and long and boring, and there was lots of time to dream and to fantasize. And I did that a lot. For the first few years of my life, I was convinced that I was a witch, and that I had magical powers, of course, and I fantasized a lot about what I did with my magical powers as I talked to my cat and ignored my 8 siblings. There were only 8 at the time. But I ignored them and played with my cat and my imaginary friends. I had about 20 imaginary friends because they did what I told them to, unlike my 8 siblings. I would make up elaborate stories and plays and filled with magic that would have been so fun, and we could have played them together. I had a part for all of my 8 siblings, but most of them wanted to be dogs or babies, and there were no dogs or babies in my play. And so I was forced to play with my imaginary friends. So I did that for quite a while, and that was my favorite fantasy, being a playwright and a witch. But then I went to school, and for a while I imagined casting horrible spells on all of my classmates. And then I started into my next phase of fantasy where I turned into animals, usually cats, sometimes wolves, at recess a horse. And then those fantasies turned into me turning into a large cat and killing everyone in my class, or a horse and trampling everyone who laughed at the way that I played kickball. Then I moved on from there to fantasies. One of my favorite fantasies is when we were driving in the car, and by this time there were probably 14 or 15 of us, and driving in the van and home from my grandmother's or home from some long drive. And I would not be happy with my family and with my situation for some reason or another. Maybe because I didn't get lucky and get the seat that time, and I was the one that had to sit on the tire well in the back. Or I had to sit on the floor with like the giant horde of children that were back there in the back. This was pre-seatbelt laws, so we had one seat and then just a giant mosh pit of children in the back of the van. And so sometimes I got lucky and got to sit in the seat, but other times I was back in the mosh pit. And then I had one of my favorite fantasies that the rest of my family died. This usually happened in a horrible car accident. And I was somehow the only survivor, and it was really sad. And people felt sad for me about losing all the rest of my family, and so a wealthy family would adopt me, of course. And it may seem terrible that I'm telling you this, that I had this fantasy that all of my brothers and sisters and my parents were killed. And you may think it's terrible because this is probably going to go on YouTube and then my siblings will all see it. It would be terrible if I didn't know that they had the exact same fantasy. Mostly because they were constantly telling me, "I hope you die." Right after I put them in the corner for some minor offense. But I know they had the same fantasy. Even when they didn't see it, I could see it in their eyes when they were stuck in the mosh pit and I got to sit in the seat. But as I got older and our house got bigger and bigger, we kept adding on to this crazy house, my fantasy changed. And my favorite fantasy is we would pull up to our crazy house in the school bus, and all 15 of us, or however many there were at the time, would get off the bus tripping and falling and go up to our house, and the kids on the bus would be looking at our house and pointing and making fun of various aspects of it. And then I would walk towards the house, but go around to the back and down into the cellar and push the magic button that opened the doors that went down into our huge, beautiful mansion. Because my parents were secret spies, and they were being paid by the government to have 21 children because we were part of some secret government experiment. And that's why we all had magical powers and could turn into animals. And we would eventually control the world and destroy our small town and be revealed as the brilliant, beautiful people that we were that lived in an underground mansion. My fantasies continued to change. For a while, I dreamed about closet space, and then when I had babies, I dreamt about sleeping through the night. But sometimes still, when I drive home to my cul-de-sac, and all of my retired neighbors have all of their flower beds looking so beautifully, and the lawns all mowed, and their houses washed, and everything perfect, and I see my house with the grass too tall and the fence falling down.
Oh.